Hi guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's Jim and Steve here, and listen, we're running out of football talk, so we got some other things to talk about tonight. Steve,
Well, we knew this day would come. That the Super Bowl is a week old, but NFL free agency will be picking up in about a week.
okay,
I would say Philip Rivers. It's official. They're parting ways with San Diego. They talked about him moving his family back to Florida.
and he's got suitors that are.
I would think so, even at age 38.
Do you?
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. We've done the Philip Rivers thing for quite a while here. Comes down to it in the clutch. He's going to the Hall of Fame. His numbers are Dan Fouts like, but he's never won anything.
I think he'll be signed by somebody. I can't predict who yet, but somebody will take a flyer on Philip at age 38.
Okay.
That's my guess, but obviously the biggest prize out there is number 12 from the New England Patriots, and we had flat out unequivocally stated that he'll be going back to New England. Right?
Or he's going nowhere. Or he's going to Hollywood, or he's going to New York, but he's not going to any other team but the Patriots.
Well, he'll get his suitors, and listen. I mean, why wouldn't he sit there and listen to some offers here? But
Because Bob Kraft will give him whatever he wants.
my point is, he'll go listen to the Raiders, right? So there's talk of the Raiders, there's talk of the L.A. Chargers, there's even ridiculous talk that the Dallas Cowboys would cut or trade Dak Prescott and sign Tom Brady. I actually heard that one today.
Oh, really?
I was very respectful in my response, saying that isn't happening.
Of course it's not happening.
So I would say at the end of the day, I would be stunned if Tom Brady decides to leave New England after 20 years. However, he's going to, I really don't see money as a motivating factor.
Well, obviously.
He'll get what he's going to get from New England. It's the same he'll get anywhere else. That's my point.
And I think he wants to go down as the marquee guy of the New England Patriots franchise.
Well, he already is.
Exactly. But why go somewhere else and play for the Vegas Raiders? I mean, that would be ludicrous. Wouldn't it be ludicrous?
I mean, the two I can think of for our old-time listeners is two of the saddest is Johnny Unitas as
playing for the Chargers.
And Joe Willie Namath with the L.A. Rams on I think it was a Monday night game.
Oh, my goodness.
Finally, so those, and I'm sure there are others, but those two come to mind. I just can't see Tom Brady
going anywhere.
I
agree, and I'm going to stick with that.
And then the other thing is back to Dak. The Cowboys have this franchise tag that they're probably going to slap on him, and I think Dak's not going to be happy about not getting a long-term deal. But I hope it just doesn't turn into the Kirk Cousins situation in Washington, where back-to-back years of franchising the guy, and
he ends up walking anyway.
And he ends up walking anyway, and the Redskins obviously had a hole at quarterback, and they still do. I mean, Haskins is far from a sure thing in Washington. But,
he's 10 minutes away from the Ryan Leaf analogy, I guess.
Right. But really, outside of that, NFL free agency, we pretty much put a wrap on the NFL for now. And any prominent stories come up, of course, we'll comment.
But I did want to bring up something, because a couple of people have talked about it, and, this XFL, okay? I don't know a lot about it, but, people are saying, oh, can they compete against the NFL? I don't think it's a competition against the NFL. I think it's a minor leagues, right? It's a showcase for guys that can get invited to training camp, coming up for next season.
Right.
But it's certainly... I'm not going to sit around and ruin a Sunday by watching any of this. I mean, are you?
Well, I mean, what I know about it is I think it's a spring league. Vince McMahon obviously is the money behind this.
Enough said.
There are a ton of NFL ex-coaches that are involved with it. I mean, I chuckle to myself. I had a friend of mine, Michael, went to MetLife Stadium yesterday.
Oh, really?
A capacity crowd looked like I had to peg it at about 20,000. I mean, the mezzanine and upper deck was not a soul up there. However, they did play the Tampa Bay Vipers, the New York Guardians, and
You could make up names, and I'd say, "Oh, really? That's the name of that
yeah,
franchise?"
Kevin Gilbride is the head coach of the Guardians, and I think Mark Trestman is the head coach for the Vipers. However, I did chuckle when I noticed on the sideline who the defensive coordinator was for the Tampa Bay Vipers. It was none other than 78-year-old ex-NFL head coach and big Elvis fan, one Jerry Glanville.
You got to be kidding me. Really? See, now that tells you how little I know about this XFL and how it's even going to survive.
And also, there's different rules, things like that. The kickoff, there's a wacky thing with that. Pepper Johnson was the defensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Wildcats for one game.
Oh.
I just read that Pepper was relieved of his duties. I guess the LA Wildcats didn't perform defensively, and I would imagine Pepper may had a few words with management. That being said, I don't think it's a joke per se by where you got a lot of these kids here, and I think they have to play a full season of this. I think they have an agreement like with the NFL that if somebody plays, and I don't even know how many games there are, to be honest with you.
No, but isn't this an NFL project?
Yeah,
Isn't
but
that
my
what this
point
about?
is, I'm thinking, these guys, there's going to be a few people that will.
End up on NFL
Sure.
rosters.
So I don't
but
think that's
what
a bad thing.
And that's what I was talking about. When
Right.
somebody said, is this going to survive? I said, I don't know. I mean, it's not a competition against the NFL, right? It's a minor league thing. We saw guys like Matt McGloin and, these guys that couldn't make it in
Cardale
the NFL.
Jones.
That's right. That's
Right.
another one.
So I'm sure there's more than a handful out there, right? So good luck to them. They this has been in the making for a couple of years.
But I'm
We'll
not
see.
watching it. I'm not watching
Well,
it. I'm going to watch it.
I can't argue with that fact.
Right? I mean, the Super Bowl is over. It was a great NFL season. There's a lot happening and so forth. And these aren't guys, all the players in the XFL aren't going to the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Right? So, good luck. Yeah, I agree. Good luck.
We'll follow it.
I'd love to see a couple of young kids get at least a little show time and show what they can do. And some of them will end up in the NFL.
Right.
But that's what it's all about. It's not competing against the National Football.
You will not see me walking around with a New York Guardians T-shirt, hat, or jersey.
And other people would say, "Oh, but you and Steve went to see the USFL. We went to see Jim Kelly and the Houston Gamblers,
That's right.
and Herschel Walker, and
Doug Flutie,
and it was great. We went on an Easter Sunday, and it was like 58 to 52 or whatever it was.
Yep.
That was fun because we knew what was going on. They were trying to compete against the NFL, right? Wooing these good players, giving them the money, and
Yep.
it didn't last more than 10 minutes.
correct.
But we did go to that game, and it was kind of fun to watch.
So we'll see what happens with this. I think we're spending a little bit more time than
Exactly.
on it that we wanted to, but we still needed to acknowledge the
And we did.
XFL.
And of course, we're wrapping up our football season and so forth, and it was sponsored by Coriano Trucking all year long for our football talk and so forth, and we thank them. And listen, they'll be with us next year as well.
You bet. So that being said, it's really college basketball time now.
It
So,
is.
Here we are, February 10th. Teams have played 20 plus games. The rankings, it's been a weird year. There really isn't that one dominant team that's been number one for, most of the season.
And we
Where-
talked about that last time, that, being number one is not where you want to be
No, it
this
seems
year.
to be a curse this year. So,
But you did bring up Baylor, and I did get a chance to watch Baylor, and yes, they're pretty good. They are very good.
I'm already picking them for a Final Four.
You
slot.
already did,
Yep.
and I'm guessing that. But
But they're ranked number one. Gonzaga, strong number two.
yeah, they're always up there.
Kansas number three. And here, San Diego State is number 4. They're 24-0. And the first thing I thought of, I've been following them probably for the last couple weeks since they've been 15-0. So I'm gonna maybe compare them to like a Wichita State Shocker team when they had Fred Van Fleet and so on, and they went what 30 something and getting into the tournament, and
Yeah.
I think they lost in like the Elite Eight or maybe the Sweet 16, something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't
16.
honestly tell you San Diego State is going to run the table.
But you know that Cinderella always rears her
That's
glass
right.
slipper kind of thing.
That's right, but be on the lookout for them. I mean, 24-0 is no joke, and being number 4 in the country, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then rounding out the Louisville 5, rebounding from the Patino debacle, a couple of years ago. So Chris Mack is the coach of them. He came from Xavier, but Louisville's back to being a top 5 program. And here's another surprise: is number 6 is Dayton, 21-2.
The Flyers.
The Dayton Flyers. I mean, I remember Jim Paxson, who is John Paxson of Notre Dame fame. Jim Paxson being, an NBA guard, Cavaliers and so on.
Yeah.
To me, he's the most famous Dayton basketball player off the top of my head I can think of.
Well, we would have to reach out to our St. Joe's Dayton alumni, Kevin Stapleton, and Mark McCormick, and those guys. They'd be able to fill in the blanks
We
on
can.
that.
We will do that, but, congratulations, Dayton. And then locally, Seton Hall coming in at number 10, right? They've rebounded, had a real nice year so far. They've had a couple losses in the last, couple weeks, but hey, number 10 for Seton Hall. That's a good thing
And
for our area.
The name is escaping me.
Miles Powell is
Miles Powell's a real good ball player.
Yeah, yes,
There's
he
no
is.
question about that.
No
But
doubt.
again, they're playing in that league that, they just lost a couple of games over the past week. So, they're coming back to earth. And there's not a lot of competition that they play. But
Well, they're not playing.
I'm glad you brought up Miles Powell because he's a good ball player.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
And then the other one was it's somewhat surprising when you think of Penn State. Obviously, you think of football, number 1.
Or the Lady Nittany Lions.
Sure.
More prominent than the
Yeah.
men's basketball
The Penn
program.
State wrestling program is very prominent as well. But Penn State, number 13 in the country, and Jim and I talked before the show. I really can't remember ever seeing Penn State basketball
On the map?
in the top 15. They may have obviously been the top 20 and,
Yeah.
22, 23,
Yeah.
that type of thing. But Penn State has had some quality wins this year, playing in the Big Ten. So, we'll keep an eye out for them. So come tournament time, these are some of the teams when you're doing your bracket that you can't discount.
And when you want to talk about college basketball, the game the other night, the Duke North Carolina game, was awesome, right?
Oh,
This
it
is
was
what
fantastic.
This is the kind of stuff. These are the guys that half a dozen of them are going to be NBA ball players and so forth, and it was awesome, exciting. And you know what I saw? We see Duke North Carolina. The all-time series is like 51-50 or something.
Yeah, even like all-time
That's
points,
parity in college
points scored,
basketball.
things like that. It was really a stark stat.
It sure was.
Of how, I mean, literally, even.
You bet.
So they'll play again probably in the ACC tournament, but the game was fantastic. Obviously North Carolina's having a real tough year. They're like 12-14 now. They were playing home in this game. They had it, and then they let it slip away. It goes to the overtime.
Yep.
But you give this kid Trey Jones on Duke, had a real good, overtime and end of the game. I think a couple calls Duke got. However, they were close calls. I'm not whining whatsoever. But I think North Carolina will be back next year. I know they have, I think, 4 top McDonald All-Americans coming in.
That's all.
But people ask me the question, well, it's North Carolina. How come the cupboard is not full this year?
I think I asked you that.
I think it's a valid question. I mean, this kid Cole Anthony, I said, got hurt. but he's just one player, but he came back, he played in the game.
They were always 6, 7 deep, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
kind of what's unusual about this.
But they're going to go home early. They're not, I don't even think, unless they finish with, I don't know, like 18 and 15 or something. Maybe they play in the NIT, but things are not well in, Chapel Hill.
No, they're not.
And Duke is, Duke is in the top 10.
And look, you look at all some of these other teams, like Michigan State. They've fallen on hard times too.
Well,
and,
I'm glad you brought up Michigan State because I wanted to talk about that.
But I did love the way that Tom Izzo defends. He loves this. That guy is one. He would be my coach in college basketball. And I know I'm going to say, what about Krzyzewski and this? But something about Tom Izzo, he is so down to earth about guarding his
Oh,
players.
you
and
like his antics on the sideline.
I'd like the face.
Yeah.
No question. No question.
But I wanted the reason I wanted to bring that up. Michigan State was the preseason #1 team in the nation, and now they fall out of the top 25, and they've just been losing games that you would think they would win. So they're piling up their losses, and it's the first preseason #1 since Kentucky in 2012 to fall out of the top 25. Doesn't mean Michigan State can't right the ship.
And don't cross them out in your bracket when it comes to the tournament.
Well, let them make the bracket first, but they got work to do. But I wanted to bring that up because of what's going on at Michigan State. So I predicted,
It's a house cleaning.
I know, but I predicted that don't be surprised during the college football season that Mark D'Antoni this would be his final season at Michigan State. And I'm not touting my back. I'm just saying I kind of felt time was going to, be up for him. So he resigns a week ago. But I'm hearing that there's more crap coming down the pike at Michigan State. And my point is,
Is it going to roll down to Tom Izzo? Which
no, I don't believe.
I hope not.
I think it's the football program. I think the football program's now up with violations. And then, this is the Larry Nasser effect you talked about.
Yeah.
It's just a bad vibe, I would say, around Michigan State athletics. And, Tom Izzo, I think, we have faith that he's run a clean program on his side. He's been there for as long as he's been there. We would have heard some indiscretions, I think. But I just wanted to.
Well,
to
listen,
mention,
the
Michigan State being in this just.
and the basketball program has had their share of troubles too. So
Sure.
if they're going to clean house, because look, it's got to affect recruiting. People don't want that stigma and going there and having a rebuild like the guys after the Sandusky effect in Penn State, and they've rebounded and so forth. But you're right. This Nasser effect is happening, and it's taken way too long
Right,
for it
and
to
the
happen.
president of Michigan State and the administration, they all been cleaned, cleaned out. Some may even be going to jail and all this
And
stuff.
when you think about what
ridiculous.
that effect alone, but Mark D'Antoni, I mean, he hasn't competed to the point where he wins big games. He beats Notre Dame once in a while in marquee games, but overall, have they won the Big Ten?
Yeah, he's had a couple. He's had several good teams. I think D'Antoni was a good coach there. But now that he resigned, don't be surprised if there's going to be some some funny business that comes out. So, but to close out college basketball for at least this week, I think there's going to be people in the audience that can't stand them. But, Bobby Knight coming back to Indiana finally after a 20-year absence. I can speak for you.
We're both.
And my brothers and so on and so forth that, we love this guy.
General Robert Montgomery Knight.
The General Robert Montgomery Knight,
Yeah.
right? He was our favorite coach. Obviously had some issues with anger.
A few.
But he's 79.
Won 3 national titles.
Oh, my God.
And everyone, all his players speak extremely highly of him.
98% of them.
There's a couple we can put in there that wouldn't think so highly of him.
But he moved back to Indiana, actually. Bought a house, actually, down the street from the university. And he was in contact with Quinn Buckner and Mike Woodson was instrumental in getting him back. Randy Whitman, remember Randy Whitman?
Yeah, sure.
And we don't like this guy, but Isaiah Thomas, he was back there, part of this, and I just don't personally like Isaiah Thomas. That doesn't mean I don't think of him as an all-time great basketball player.
He was a great basketball
It really was.
No question.
But Bobby Knight, my God, he's 79. But
That's why he's coming
he
back.
looks 89, bordering 90.
I
so
know he does.
I just wanted to throw that out there that, I was happy to see. He was well received by the faithful of
He's a
Indiana.
legend there. He's a
an
legend.
absolute legend. And again, aside of his, anger issues and so on, he's more well respected as the basketball coach mind. And again, he started his career at West Point. Mike Krzyzewski was his, protege, caddy,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, just wanted to finish out the college basketball segment.
And listen, even before we
the General Robert Montgomery Knight.
we loved them. We loved them. But there was one great line. I don't know who coined it, and I don't know who to give credit to, but it was always a thing of the incident where he threw the chair. So there was a thing. Bobby Knight opened up a furniture store. If you buy 2 couches, he'll throw a chair in for free. I love that one.
That's
That was
a good
brilliant.
one. That's a good one.
And listen, to our one of our loyal fans, Tony, we'll catch up and we'll mention some women's basketball going forward too.
Sure. South Carolina's ranked number 1
Yeah.
for that. UConn is falling back to earth.
And I know
The
Tony's
Lady Huskies.
and she's a big Tennessee fan and
Right.
admired Pat Summitt and so forth, and we did too.
Sure.
I mean, we did too.
Coach Summit.
But we'll talk about college basketball a lot coming up, and we can't wait.
You got it.
And we our sponsor, Lynch Motors of Manchester, Connecticut. We thank them, and a college basketball segment was brought to you by them, and patronize them. They're up in Manchester, and they're quite an organization and a loyal sponsor, and we
Absolutely.
thank them.
Thank you, Mike. So let's shift gears to pitchers and catchers reporting mañana for the most part.
Right.
But I would say during the week, obviously, I would say the biggest news was the Red Sox trading Mookie Betts and David Price to the Dodgers, and
Which is finally a done deal.
Shedding a ton of money.
Oh, they got a clean house with that. Hey, listen, they pumped all that money into that organization, and they got a World Series. Now is it tainted because of the whole cheating?
We shall
scandal?
see.
I don't
That's
know.
the other point with the Red Sox is I think Major League Baseball will make the determination probably, and something should be announced this week. Again, they're without a manager. They had to fire Cora, and Cora knew the writing was on the wall, so he kind of beat him to the punch. I would, if Ron Renicky is the bench coach, if he is not involved in any way, and most likely I would say he would take the reins. They got the new president, Chaim Bloom.
Quite
what
frankly,
else?
that sounds made up.
Yeah, but that's his name. He took over for Dombrowski, who they fired.
Mhm.
But the bottom line is to shed that David Price salary is big. They still got to pay Chris Sale a ton of money, so they're on the hook for him for another 5 years. They've depleted their farm system, as far as I know. And Mookie Betts is due a big payday. Now, Mookie Betts, if he has a Mookie Betts year in L.A., and they got all the money in the world, he could, depending on his year, and he brings the title to the Dodgers this year.
Is that the missing piece
I
for the Dodgers?
think he could probably be the second $400 million guy.
That kind of money you think he's going to command?
If he's got to bring a title, because he's going to be
He
a
drove
free
in
agent.
85 runs last year. I
He
mean,
was the MVP the year before. He's still young, he's only 28 or so.
I like him. I'm not
I
dismissing
think
it.
again, the Yankees have big expectations, right? But the Dodgers probably have the most pressure to bring home a title.
Agreed.
I think, of any team,
Agreed.
right?
Yep.
So, but I think don't be surprised. I mean, even right now, I mean, you have to say the Yankees and the Dodgers going into the season,
Could meet again in the Fall Classic.
and they haven't done it since 1981. Fernando Mania.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously they went back to back in 77, 78,
Which were great.
which we love because we were young enough and right in our wheelhouse. But we wanted to start with that, so we'll see what happens with the Red Sox. And then while we're on that quote unquote sign stealing thing, AJ Hinch. AJ Hinch had an interview on TV, probably 3-4 days ago.
Yeah.
And he looks like he has been through the ringer, man, as far as emotion and everything goes. And I still think he will wind up managing, whether it's 3 years down the road or something, when this goes to the wayside.
I think what's going to happen, I think this is going to be one of those implied blackballing things where I don't think A.J. Hinch is going to get a job in the major
For a
leagues.
couple of years at least.
At least.
At least.
Right, until it blows over, if it blows over.
Right.
But
I wanted to bring up the fact that he was really asked a question about the buzzers and Altuve and not taking his shirt off, coming around in third and this, that, and the other thing. And you know what? He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. But it still leaves it open now for the conspiracy theorists. And I got to tell you, I'm buying conspiracy on this one.
you're buying buzzers and
I think I think these guys had this thing set up. Whether you wanted to use the garbage can as your
or the code
thing.
breaker software.
Totally.
With
With technology, you kidding me?
I get it.
Like I said a couple weeks ago, the game of operation on what's the object of that? Take the worm out of your knee without touching the side. Right?
Remove funny bone.
So how hard is it? Right?
All right.
So we
I'm
shall
hoping.
see.
I'm hoping that's not the case. 'Cause
But
I
Altuve's coming to spring training, and he's going to have a lot of questions. That he's going to have to.
Oh,
answer.
if he hits 260,
Oh,
then
my
the
God.
questions will be answered by themselves,
Yeah,
right?
Well,
I mean-
he already signed his long-term deal, so.
all right. Listen, Steve. Before we sign off, on the baseball aspect, what do you make of this whole Mets thing? I mean, the fans are just sitting there going, "We want the Will Ponds out," right? They pull all the wrong moves. They hire Brody. He hasn't done anything. I mean, what are they trying to get? I mean,
I'm as stunned as anybody. So, again, this is 4 days ago or 5 days ago. And I'm like, hey, did you hear that, Cohen, the billionaire, beyond billionaire
exactly
guy,
beyond being
who's a
billionaire.
Met fan, grew up a Met fan, his father loves the Mets, he's got more money than he knows what to do with, and he pulls out of this deal.
Because of the Will Ponds. They
Because of
said
the
we
Will
want
Ponds.
to run the team for
For
5
another
years
5
on
more
your
years.
dime.
And I tell you what,
And
this
Steve
guy-
Cohen said, "You're out of your mind."
Exactly.
You know.
And you know what? Who's to say he doesn't come back to the table? But all signs indicate right now that he's walking away. And now the Mets are left holding the bag, and they're going to have Will Ponds running this thing. And
Yep.
it's not good for the Met fan. And I feel bad for the Met fan because there really was a level of optimism that, in 2 years, I think it was, that this guy was taking over. I thought initially it was like 2 years or something along those lines.
But the terms and conditions that the Will Ponds laid down, this guy says, "Really? Are you kidding me? I want to run this team tomorrow."
Listen, Jeffy, we're getting a little tired of you.
Put Fred on the phone.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Oh, yeah, please. Fred's visiting Bernie Madoff in prison. Bernie's not feeling well.
Right,
I think
right.
Bernie's on his way out.
Right, Bernie's looking for a pardon there. Good luck. Good luck. Let him buy the team.
Yeah, but I feel bad that the Mets had a real solid guy that was, you better believe he was opening the bank and getting. So
Yep.
we'll see what happens. Doesn't mean
Yep.
another billionaire takes over.
Somebody will.
But
Somebody
it
will.
goes to the Mets. I mean, when you think of Mets, you think dysfunction. At least I do.
That's exactly
Word
what-
association, Mets, dysfunction.
Right.
That's me. So
I agree with you.
But again, pitchers and catchers report. Garrett Cole shows up in Yankee camp very soon. And the young guns got some raises. Judge is making like $5 million now. Sanchez got a raise. These guys, they were making 600 grand. So they went to arbitration in the off season. But Aaron is going to be due in a year or two or whatever. He better produce, produce.
And he's going to get a major package.
To get a major package. Sanchez, I'm still firm. I think he's a dog.
I do too.
I don't think the Yankees will pay him a ridiculous contract. And if they could trade him, they will. And I'm firm about it. Because the Yanks drafted 2 young catchers in the first round the last 2 years.
And both of us would concede. Listen, the guy can hit. He can hit 40 home runs.
Okay. He's not a consistent hitter.
And he's not a great catcher. He's got a good
dog.
arm, and he doesn't run out to first base. So I don't know.
I'm not saying he's the worst, but
he's not going to get $40 million a year with these other guys.
If he does, have it be with somebody else.
And it will be with somebody else.
So for baseball, that's pretty much what's going on right now. We'll do our, baseball preview show and everything once the weather turns.
So let's move on. And listen, hockey is just like college hoops. Once football is over, we start to tune in a little bit more than we did in the first season. Because it's the longest, most brutal season, I think, of all sports and so forth.
Yeah.
And, there's some great players and... I think you and I talked about Ovechkin a couple of years ago, and he was going to break 700 goals, and I said that seems he's already.
He's got 690,
right,
north of 690
right
now.
So you nailed that one. I'll give you credit for that. I just didn't think he had. I mean, he plays his ass off week after game after game and night after night.
The only thing that's going to stop him is cirrhosis of the liver.
And if he gets his hands on that Stanley Cup again,
I don't know how he comes back from that.
That was great, though. Actually, it was great.
But listen,
he's a great player, one of the marquee guys still in the league.
I really think he is on pace. He's going to break Gretzky's all-time record at that.
I don't think
he
so.
Stays healthy. I see him pulling not a Yarmer Yager to 45 or a Gordie Howe.
Right.
I can see him Tom Bradying it to 42, and if that's the case, bank on it.
I just can't see.
You can bank on it.
I always thought that Gretzky's records were the most unattainable.
Gretzky's going to have still all these unattainable records. However, the goals being one of them. I just can't have Alex Ovechkin there, Petey. All-time leading goal scorer there, Petey.
I know. I
Over
agree.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, that's a record I don't want to ever see broken.
Right.
Ever.
So I'm getting nervous about this.
All right.
And I'm not knocking Ovechkin because the guy's super talented goal scorer, tough and
gritty. No question.
Gritty's brought the Stanley Cup to Washington. I'm not knocking him.
I agree with you.
But we're Gretzky guys, and we like our
I don't want to see
our records being held by class guys.
Look, we had to live through Lou Gehrig's record being broken by Cal Ripken, and if you compare Lou Gehrig to Cal Ripken, you can't compare.
Yeah,
and if you compare Wayne Gretzky to Alex Ovechkin,
I think the audience gets the gist on our feelings. And if you have any questions or comments about it, please send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com.
Yep. And listen, we're going to cover all these sports. Like I said, football's in our rearview mirror for a little while, and I just can't wait till college basketball starts heating up. We're like, what, a month away from
madness,
tournament time and so forth, and
it'll be here before you know it.
Can't wait.
And then in college hockey, my alma mater, Boston University, plays tonight for our Boston faithful. They're in the Beanpot Final. So for our audience that's not familiar with that, that's the 4 local Boston schools: Boston College, Boston U,
Northeastern,
and Harvard. And Northeastern beat Harvard last week, and BU comes back against BC and wins in double overtime. So
and we talked
Northeastern and Boston University play at the TD Bank where the Bruins play.
It's a big deal in
and
Boston.
It's a great venue, and it's packed house,
And these are guys
Awesome.
that are, half a dozen of those, like we talked before. These guys are going to the NHL.
yeah,
I mean,
or they're getting drafted, and they'll chase the dream. But really, it's great college hockey. It's a fun experience, and go BU.
you bet. So listen, we covered a lot of sports and so forth, but there's Steve and I, sometimes we wander off into other areas like entertainment, and we talk about notable passings. And Steve, bring it up. Who was the most notable of passings in Hollywood this week? Coming on the heels of Oscar night, which I don't give you 50 cents for.
Douglas.
And I watched.
Doing my Kirk Douglas for a week now.
Kirk Douglas. we all got our Kirk Douglas thing. But I actually watched an old rerun of Saturday Night Live. He was hosting in 1980, and it was so funny.
Oh, I bet.
It was brilliant.
Oh, God. I mean, who was in more movies than Kirk Douglas?
I don't know who was in any more movies than him, right? You go to
And he
Spartacus and
he
so
worked
forth.
there. He worked up until he was early 90s or
Yep.
something, right?
Yeah.
Did some ridiculous guy, like Tough Guys or something, with like Burt Lancaster, when Burt Lancaster was 80 something.
Oh, exactly. No,
But,
but this guy was Hollywood. He
Oh,
was
no
a
doubt.
stud, and
no doubt.
got good offspring. and so
103
forth.
years old, God bless him. Father of Michael Douglas, of course.
Yep.
But is he the most notable passing? I would say it's tough to pass Kirk Douglas in
You
a
bet.
notable passing. So
But there was another actor who had quite a resume from a Hollywood perspective, Robert Conrad.
that is correct.
And I think some of our fans would certainly know who he is. I guess his most prominent television role was Jim West, and
I would think so, of the Wild Wild West.
as ridiculous as it may have been, we loved it,
It
and
was,
watched
oh
it.
my God, I could have never get enough of that with Artemis
Yep.
Gordon. Ross Martin is
You bet.
Artemis Gordon.
And every other B actor in Hollywood guest starred on that
with
show.
wacky villains and stuff like that.
Yep.
But he just passed at 84. Hollywood tough guy, all 5'8", 165, and also
Exactly.
remember him from like the Superstars athletic competition.
Yeah,
in
he
the
could
70s.
row a boat. Yeah,
Right,
that's
he
for
could row
sure.
a boat and throw a shot put.
You bet.
So, but notable passing. Baba Black Sheep was another show of his,
Very good.
and his original series we were too young for, but apparently came out in 1959. It was called Hawaiian Eye. So he was a private eye, and that was his first role.
Yeah, all 7 episodes.
And then, of course, the Ever Ready commercials that knocked the battery off.
Right.
Not only will I knock the battery off you, Robert.
Go ahead, knock it off.
Come on, tough guy.
And this is exactly who Sean Penn tried to emulate himself
Oh,
after,
totally.
trying to be a 5'8" tough guy.
Absolutely.
Well, Robert Conrad at 84 could have taken Sean Penn apart in 30 seconds.
So, R.I.P. to Robert Conrad, 84 years old.
And you mentioned one other guy who was he's a Hall of Famer.
Yep, prominent NFL player, Green Bay Packer fame, Hall of Famer, Willie Wood, safety for
Yep.
many championship teams on
Played
Green
for under
Bay.
Coach Lombardi.
Lombardi thought he was one of his favorite players. I think Lombardi has said that Forrest Gregg to him was the greatest player he ever coached. But Willie Wood, Hall of Famer, passes away at 83. We
Yeah.
want to acknowledge him. Played in both the first 2 Super Bowls. Had a big interception, I think, in Super Bowl I,
Yep.
if I remember correctly.
He did.
And he was enshrined in 1989 in the Hall of Fame. So,
Long overdue. If Vince Lombardi says this guy was a player,
yep,
then it was long overdue.
I can guess.
So listen, we wanted to touch base on that, and our previous segment was sponsored by Di Filippi's Bakery in Monticello, New York, who's, again, we can't say enough about their loyalty and so forth. So patronize, all of our sponsors and so
Yes,
forth.
please.
And And before we sign off, I'd be remiss if I didn't. One of our biggest fans is Mike Garvey from Naples, Florida, and his birthday, and came and went, and I negligently forgot about it, and I
Okay.
apologize. So I'm giving a happy birthday to Mike in Naples, and my apologies for missing it.
Happy birthday, Michael Garvey. Hope you had a great time and enjoyed it.
But listen, like Steve brings up, all the time, we really would love to hear from you. So please send us an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com, or feel free to check us out on YouTube and SoundCloud, and you can comment, and like Tony and so forth, they comment, and
Yeah.
Jim Walsh and these
Cliff
guys.
Olander, Cliff, Cliff and I just hooked up on Facebook, and Cliff's a loyal listener. Always shouts out a like to our show.
Yep.
So there's plenty of people out there. Love to get to know you, hear your feedback, your comments, and we sincerely appreciate you guys listening. So
And we do, because we're growing, and our fan base is growing, and this is only going to get bigger. And our loyal listeners are a foundation of that, and we thank them very, very much, and look forward to our next show.
you got it. And I just got one shout out. Our nephew Brendan Monahan, who was the pitching coach, recruiting coordinator for Rutgers. They start their baseball season this coming weekend. They travel to Coral Gables and open up against the Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah.
So wanted to wish Brendan best of luck in his first year at the helm down there. With,
Absolutely.
His boss is Steve Owens. They came from Bryant University. So we just wanted to throw that out there.
And Brendan's a future manager in college baseball, so this is a big move for him, and a big program, and
Yep.
a lot of people are counting on him, and we're rooting for him big time.
You bet.
So thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll catch up to you next week. And again, send us some comments, but we'll get into golf. Like I said, we kind of passed over on the Pebble Beach. To me, the Pebble Beach Pro-Am is kind of the start of golf season, even though obviously the Masters is the first major. But all these tournaments leading up to that, I love watching the Pebble Beach. I love it.
Oh yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Phil again. Phil's 49. He's gonna be 50 in June, I think.
Yep.
So this is it for him now. I mean, he's got one really more shot, I would say, getting his U.S. Open, and then he's gonna crush it on that senior tour like Tiger Woods was when he came on the scene in the 90s.
That's
early
right.
90s.
Like Nick Price did. Remember,
Oh,
Nick
oh.
Price had a great run in his
Oh,
late 40s and so forth, and then just mopped it up.
Yeah, right.
It's awesome.
So I can't wait to see Phil against Bernhard Langer.
No, he's still
I know.
he's still the best guy on the
I
senior
know.
tour, right? We've always loved Bernhard, Masters champion. But thanks for joining us, everybody, and we'll catch up to you next week. Steve, thank you.
You got it. See you, everybody.
All right, guys.